Hello, everyone. Welcome back to what we call the Schools Out podcast. I am one of your hosts, Philip Mott, and I live in Midwest America with my family, 3 kids, and we've been unschooling now for 7 years.
Oh, and I'm Hamilton Carter, and I'm out in San Francisco, and I don't even know. We've been homeschooling for more than 7 years or so, and just kind of cruising it through. We finally the 7. We just went through birthday season. Mine's actually tomorrow. But the 7-year-old kid and I finally got to run away to Philadelphia, which is a trip that we planned just before the pandemic, and just are now getting to do. I fly a lot for work, and so I wind up with free tickets. And then if you fly enough, Southwest says, you know what, you can designate one person. You can change it a couple times a year, but you can designate one person that flies free with you for the year. And so the kids were on the system of taking turns, and the now 11-year-old had her turn, and the now 9-year-old had her turn, and the now 7-year-old was about to get her turn, and then pandemic, and so we're finally getting up to that. And cool. so we got to run away to Philadelphia for 3 days.
Wow.
And she's big into boxing, so we got to see the Rocky statue. And we tried to go in the museum, but they didn't have a mask rule and it was packed, and so we skipped that. So no museums, but it was really nice. We wandered around South Philly, so it was the streets where, actually in the first Rocky movie, where he's like running through the open air food markets, and they're still there, so we got to go hang out down there, and so that was really cool. And then we've just been doing lots of hanging out with friends for the last 3 weeks, because we haven't been able to do that either. So we're ramping up everything that direction too, getting chess group going again, going to see museums in town, going swimming in the bay. And so it's been a busy month. So
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, you ready to dig into this topic today?
Yeah.
Do you want to introduce it for us?
There was actually, it was kind of a week of it. We're going to talk about, there was a thread on Twitter, and the person doing the thread had outlined 8 things that which I thought was hilarious the way they put this. 8 things that you should pick a fight with your children about if you need to. Growing up where I grew up, I'm like, oh God, you're gonna die. But sure, pick a fight. And like a lot of the things were like, most of the things, arguably all of the things were things that for a family would work great.
I can get behind a lot of them. Where I really struggle with is framing it as a fight.
Yeah.
Because I think that's one of the big problems in our culture is, it's not that our norms are wrong, it's that we think we have to fight to create those norms, and that those norms don't arise out of the situation.
Yep. Yeah. No, that's wow. Yeah. Okay, we're done, because you said what I think. So
episode finished.
You have summed it up. That's it. We're out.
So you want to go through this? There's 8 things worth picking fights with your kids. So after we get done recording, I'm going to put my boxing gloves on, and I'm going to go pick fights with my kids. So let's go through in order. The very top one, you could probably guess. Make them do what?
Oh God, I think I remember. Read.
Yep. Make them read. Now, every single one of these starts with, and he's done this, I think, intentionally, make them do this, make them do this, make them do this. So what are your thoughts about make them read? Are you ready to pick a fight with your kids about reading?
No, well, so funny thing. Um, we kind of did. We thought, and again, for us, like lots and lots and lots of things for us come out of, wow, this kind of talking about based on culture. This would be so convenient and easier for us if everybody read. And so we kind of did, and it so didn't work. And so to me, yeah, no, there was kind of like what he describes. There's one kid that like totally off and running, I'm going to go read now, and it didn't work for us. And I guess and that's the kind of thing that kills me too, on this is there's people, it's just um like lots of people we know, like Akila and Tirsa, that talk a lot about respectful parenting and building actual relationships with kids. And this, oh my God, just for me, and we're what in East Texas they would call ornery. Um, I wouldn't have won this fight, and I would have just blown the next, hopefully 60 years out of the water, because even if I'd managed to force somebody to do a thing, holy shit, the resentment, and that might be just one of our cultural norms, like in our family. But yeah, no, we tried, I gave up, it didn't work.
One thing that makes this thread effective is that there's no definition of what it means to make them read.
Okay.
So whatever level of coercion you read into the thread, that's what the thread represents to you. If you think that making your kid read 45 minutes a day is enough, then that's what you're going to read into the thread. You're going to think that that's what the author means. But for some people, this means reading 4 hours a day. And they're like, no, I can't do that. I can't win that fight.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of ambiguity in the language, which actually helps, because it helps the author, because they can just say these sort of blanket statements, and it doesn't matter if your assumptions don't line up with theirs, because it's general enough that it can apply to you. My take on it is that it's not a fight for us. Our kids read, they look at books, and sometimes they don't. So I don't know, like, I can't see a situation where I would make them read. But I can't see a time in the future where they don't want to be around books either.
Oh yeah.
Like when you're not forced to read, reading is a thing of curiosity.
Yep.
Like books are curious because they're a thing that is around us. And when you go to the library, you pick a book off the shelf, and if you're a kid, you don't put it back where it goes.
Right on.
But they're interesting. They're books for kids are full of pictures and words and silly things. And so if you have books around you, you're going to pick one of them up eventually. I mean, that's why poisonous things are marked with poisonous labels, is because if it's around, kids are going to pick it up. So that's my take on it.
Cool. Yeah. I like I said, this. See, so it's funny you mentioned 45 minutes. We were literally would not look at a letter, and you mentioned the book thing. The kid was always interested in books. The kid always had books. Just
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no. As far as actually getting there, you'd be like, "What letter's that?" Q. And it's like, yeah, but you have to actually look at it. L. and who knows what was going on, but yeah, no, it wasn't happening. So yeah, Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. You make a good point that who knows what the original author really meant, but yeah.
Yeah.
And
You know,
he
is it,
might just be a genius at getting people involved in conversations because
it's a marketing post more than anything.
yeah.
And when they say they made their kids read, what does that mean? Like, what do you mean you made them do it? Did you bribe them? Did you reward them? Did you praise them? There's 100 different ways to coerce kids into reading, and some of them are more harmful than others.
Yeah.
So, you know, when you read that language of make your kids read, my question is, at what cost?
Mhm.
You know, are you asking your reader to consider the cost? Because I think it's pretty accepted in our culture that nothing's free. So if you do make a kid read against their wishes, there is a cost to that. And is he saying that no matter the cost,
Yeah.
make your kid read?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, pretending that there's no cost to all of these fights that they're proposing is um, it's arrogant and ignorant at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Next fight,
All right.
the outside fight. Make your kids go outside,
Oh,
Hamilton. Make
oh,
them
yeah. Yeah, exactly.
get outside, or I'm gonna spank you.
So this is yeah, no. Um,
Get outside, or I'm not gonna feed you your next meal.
we do this. I mean, but again, and this leads into all kinds of other interesting conversations, I think, about homeschooling, and especially unschooling, because unschooling, first past reading unschooling books, they very, and I've seen people that thought the same thing, that unschooling books are very much like, we'll set the kid in the middle of somewhere and they will decide what they want, with no knowledge of anything, and we're all beautiful, and we're all beautiful people anyway. But you know, to me, the way it read was, we're beautiful parents because we've never influenced a child at all. And I'm just like, that's, at least for me, that's a total and utter lie. And that leads back into this outside fight, because we like going outside. And so all of the kids here were camping at the latest when they were 4 weeks old. And so, and it was very pleasant for us, and lo and behold, again, we just totally lucked out. The kids sleep better camping than they do anywhere else. When they're, that camping was like the nights we actually got to sleep. And so, yeah, we don't, it's not a fight we would ever have to have. But that's because, and it gets back to that unschooling thing, totally, I influenced them on purpose because it's what I like to do, or that's the way I see it. And it totally worked, and that's totally fine. And if one of the kids had said, oh God, I hate this, then we would have, you know, God, who wants to have not any fun all the time?
Yeah,
We would have adapted, but it just doesn't seem, um I most of these things, it seems like a thing you could wind up doing, but it's not like the thing that's going to end your life if you don't do it. And it's, who
yeah,
cares? And I don't know how you force people to do things that aren't part of their um part of their little microculture of where they live and what their family does. So
yeah,
yeah, like I can tell people till I'm blue in the face how wonderful all this is, but if they don't like doing it, it's not going to matter.
yeah,
So that's where I am. What do you think on this one?
yeah. I'm on board with you. The you know, again, it's very general. Like how much time outside
Oh, that too.
is not
Yeah.
stated. You know, there's good research that 30-45 minutes a day outside is really healthy for everybody.
Okay.
Um, uh, I think it's hard to not go outside at least that much each day. I mean, and just unless it's just bitterly cold and things like that. Um, but there are days that none of us in the family go outside. So, um, that certainly happens. I have to kind of make myself get outside. I think there's value in shifting the conversation in myself and thinking these are things that I should discipline myself to do. I should make myself go outside. And but he's positioning it as like these are things that you probably already have a handle on, and you need to make your kids do it too. I wanted to mention that the only time I think I can really support it is when, as a parent, you feel like you need a little bit of a break, you need some quiet,
Oh,
and you might suggest it to your kids, like, look, I'm feeling a little uneasy. I need to get some things done, and you're making a bunch of noise. Could you go play outside?
right on. Yeah.
I can get behind that more than this is your time to be outside. Like this sounds more like a prison kind of environment. Like this is outside time and there's no choice about it. So I don't like that.
Yard time.
Yard time.
Oh God. Yeah, and another thing in this outside thread kind of shows that I'm not. To me, these are written from a perspective, and I'm privileged, and maybe I should have more of this perspective, and I don't. But like they're like written from the perspective of struggle. Like this person that wrote the thread thinks everything one of the benefits they mentioned for being outside, there are way things that work that I must adapt to because it won't adapt to me, is the way I read their tone. And it's just like,
Yeah.
well, I guess, but also I got not. Yeah, it doesn't. All of this to me, I'm just, and like I say, I'm privileged, so maybe I'm just wrong. But it doesn't have to be a struggle like that. And
Plus,
like even yours,
if you're going outside only to like learn a lesson, then you're kind of missing the point.
well, yeah, why would you want to go outside?
Like one of the points of being outside is to get away from the ought to and the shoulds. Like it's a way to recenter yourself, and the fresh air feels good. And so there's something in the language that like you have to go outside for a purpose.
Yeah, yeah, yep,
Like no, the purpose is to be outside.
yeah,
Okay, go
yeah,
ahead. You were going to say something
and
else.
yep, yeah, not feeling it. It's bizarre to me. And I know there's things that other people do. Well, like the reading thing, you should do 45. Well, we just didn't, and it wound up fine. The kid
Yeah.
got to the point where they were like, I want to be independent, and to be independent, you're right. I need to be able to read, for example, where the bus is going. And so they just did it, and yeah. This author tends to separate. It's us and them. Like what you said was a very teamwork sort of thing. I think was I need to do this. Can you do this? And then we can both kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The work fight. This one's hilarious to me.
Okay. Why is that?
Because play is work.
Okay.
The more that we explore the things that kids are learning when they're playing, the more we're realizing that it's not, that it is their work, and so making them work from my perspective is you can just let them work.
Okay. Yep.
Their work looks different than yours, and he's trying to say your inclination to judge their activities from your perspective is right. You need to make them do things like you do them, because that's work, and what they do is play. You have to grow them up. And where my perspective is, children grow on their own and their work evolves as they do. So
yeah.
if they build blocks when they're younger, some kids will continue to do some kind of block building that evolves in complexity and purpose as they grow. Others will evolve and do other things, and that's
Mhm.
fine.
Yeah.
So that's why it's hilarious and it's absurd, because it's just a definition. Like, what do you mean by work?
Yeah.
Because I think you can let kids work. You don't have to make them, because kids work.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. No, I hadn't thought about it that way. To me, it was just again with this combative thing of well now, and anyway, I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, to me, if the things that have worked here is the kids want to do the stuff we're doing. And you know, so he's like, there are things that can happen when they're two, and he's right about that. But in our case, you know, the 2-year-old was like, I want to try that. And so then that became their play. And we
Mhm.
didn't have to do that. And like there's a kid here in the last few months that thinks mopping is really cool, to use the original author's mopping example. And so mopping is happening. It's not great mopping, but mopping is happening. Um,
Yeah.
and so yeah, this is another one of those things that it seems like if you just sit back, the beginnings of it will come, I think. And then the other thing we did was uh, yeah, again with the combativeness, you know, there's this quote down here I'm looking at right now. You don't get the benefits of being in family without taking your share of the responsibilities. It's like, well, shit. We're saying the same thing, he and I, but
Hmm.
we don't, you know, we're like, okay, hey guys, we want to do all these things that we do, and to get all these things done, we have to be able to come back and cook quickly, because we're only going to be like in the house. God, back in the before times, we were in the house not asleep maybe 3 hours a day, um most days. And so it's like, so the way we can do that is if all the dishes are already put away, then we get to do these other things, and there's 5 of us, and so all 5 of us are going to work at it. And yeah, it worked. And sometimes they slide and I take up their pieces of it, and sometimes I slide and they take up my pieces of it, and it just doesn't, God, it doesn't have to be a fight. um so
So
yeah.
let me try something here, and we'll
Yeah.
recap the list so far,
All right.
and I will reframe it
All right.
to try to summarize the tension that we feel. I think we're getting there. So the first one is make them read.
Uh-huh.
But what if we change that to let them read?
Yeah,
How does that feel?
that feels great.
Okay, second one is make them go outside.
Yeah.
We reframe that into let them go outside.
Right on. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Instead of three, make them work, we
Let them
let
work.
them work.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, that's kind of the pattern, is like he's treating it like we have to make our kids do these things. And the way that we've experienced it is that when I let them do these things, they do them.
Yeah.
Maybe not as much as I do, or as much as I even would prefer them to, but they still do it a lot
Uh-huh.
more than I thought they would.
Yeah. 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 Totally. Life
Number
can be
four. Number
easier.
four is an interesting one. We kind of started talking about that when we first got on the call together. Make yourselves make. How did he put it? The meal fight. Make your kids
Yeah.
eat as a family. I feel like every one of these should be turned into like a meme where you have this like dad who's like this, just like getting ready to punch somebody. Make your kids eat as a family.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it goes back to the language, like what do we mean by make, like to what extent, and like how, at what cost, you
Mhm.
know am I, and I think this is a pretty young father like I am, who has kids all under teenage years,
Oh, wow. Okay.
from what I
Okay.
can gather. So it's very different to try to make a teenager eat with you than to make a 4-year-old eat with you.
Also true. Yeah. Yeah.
you know. And I just don't think it has the value that he thinks it does. I think there's more value in family camaraderie, in letting your kids choose how they want to engage with food than making them engage with food in a predetermined way.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And there's other places that you're going to get a pause, and it's going to change with every family. So for us, we don't have a car. Our pauses happen on public transit because it takes half an hour to get somewhere. And guess what? I'm not driving. And
Hmm.
so ta-da. But am I going to tell somebody in Las Cruces, where my dad grew up, where they've got like 5 bus lines? Hey, the important thing is for you to spend time with your family on the bus. You're going to be like, you've lost your freaking mind. Uh, so yeah, yeah.
And there are a lot of cities where they don't utilize buses as much, but they just walk everywhere.
There, what,
Um,
everywhere?
they just walk everywhere.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Now our city isn't like we drive everywhere. Our grocery store is a 5-minute drive for us, or no, that's about 8 minutes. So, for us to walk there would take 2 hours.
God, yeah, yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I think for our family too, it's like I'd love to explore some of us eating at different times, because there are times, my wife and I we don't get a whole lot of time to just sit down one on one. So I would actually like to see what it would be like for my wife and I to have our meal together and the kids to eat their meal together.
Oh,
Um,
that's cool. Yeah.
because they get on our nerves when we're all eating together.
Yeah.
And we spend time together doing other things. So I think you could easily say, it's like, let your family, reframe this, let your family spend time together in a way that's enjoyable. That doesn't necessarily have to be at the dinner table.
Yep. Totally. Totally. And just the culture thing again, things I could suggest is, so you said you guys, like if you eat separately, you don't get on each other's nerves. And we, in the before times, we were doing more and more of, we'd go to a place and the kids would sit, up at the bar or a completely different table, and they would just handle everything for themselves when we went out to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And so I could just as easily write a thread that says, you must force your children to eat separately from you in a restaurant. They'll learn independence and how to deal with people, and they will.
Yeah.
But that
Yeah.
might not be the thing for other people. But anyway, yeah. Yep.
Yep.
Forcing people.
Okay, let's see. Number 5, make them the boredom fight. Make your kids live with boredom.
This is the irony tweet to me.
The ultimate irony.
He says they've become activity addicts, and it's like, yeah, dude, who is forcing them to have activities for the last 4 tweets? And so now you need to force them to come up with their own thing. It's like, okay, sure,
Yeah.
jump back in there, man. Yeah. You can fix this. So yep.
Yeah, it's like there's part of it that is good about saying like they're overscheduled and they need to have unstructured time, and it's like, but you were just structuring a bunch of their time. If meals are together, that's an hour and a half a day. Let's see, if they're working, so if they have to do chores, let's say that's an hour a day, so we're at 2.5 hours. If they have to go outside, let's say that's another hour a day, that's 3.5 hours. If they have to read, let's call that another hour a day, so that's 4.5 hours. And then the rest of the time they're in school.
I was going to say, yeah, no, you throw school in there, you've just run out of time altogether.
Yeah. So then you got bath time, and he's got 3 more tweets of things that they have to do. So when are they going to be bored?
I don't know, man.
Answer me, Hamilton.
Yeah, maybe if they sneak off one day, they'll come back and say, God, that was horrible. I'm so bored.
That's the irony. That is funny. Yeah, I agree totally. It's and I just wrote it. I wrote it down at the reframing, like let them be bored. See boredom as a problem that they can solve. I think that's the way that I like to say it.
Okay. Yeah.
Janet Lansbury put it a way that I like to refer to a lot. Boredom is just the space between ideas, that it doesn't have to be seen as a threat.
Totally. Yeah. And I've noticed the kids around here, usually when they say they're bored, there is actually something they would really, really, really like to do that they just don't think I'm going to go for at the moment.
That's true. That's a good point.
And maybe neither here nor there, but yeah. There's
boredom. In that way, you could say that boredom is the distance between what I would really like to be doing and what I'm doing now.
maybe, yeah. And then the next one is you want to go on to the last unloving thing?
Yeah.
I hadn't seen this one before. What do you think of this one?
This one's harder for me to talk about because it's there's I think it assumes a one person at a time mentality, which is a very school mentality of like single file.
Yep.
But there's this beauty in sharing our time together. Like I think about in some communities where it's more normal for everyone to sort of like bathe together, because bath isn't necessarily like the same as we think of, like we have a one bathtub, we fill up the bathtub for one kid, where there's a lot of communities, and for a lot of human history, people bathe in rivers, so bathing would have been more of a communal activity. Eating is a communal activity. This is more of like only one person can go, so we have to create a line. But there's a lot of different ways that you can think about that, and kids kind of come up with some of that on their own. So if you're stuck in this idea that everything is a single serving, then you're going to create a lot of tension that doesn't need to be there anyway. That doesn't mean I never experienced what he's talking about. There's, my kids wanted to work on some music with me yesterday, and I have a drum set, and the two older ones wanted to both play the drum set. Well, they kind of got there at the same time, so they were arguing about who went first. And I said that you guys are spending more time arguing than you're spending playing the drums. And I said, why don't you go out of the room and you come back, later and play? And no one ever came back.
Oh, wow.
It was kind of the principle of the idea of like, they were both demanding that they wanted to go first, and neither was going to give up. And when I said, let's just put this fight off until later, they decided to not have the fight at all.
Right on. Cool.
So, and I'm not saying that I handled it the best way or the right way. I would have rather them both, find a way to kind of do it. But it's an electronic drum set, so that one's a little bit harder with the headphones. That one's a little harder to do at the same time.
Oh, okay.
But they could have. They could have done it.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
So yeah, I think this thread really, this part of the thread really, it's like the drinking fountain scenario. It's like there's only one spout, and so we have to take turns.
Yeah.
And he's looking at life as like everything is like that. Well, in our modern culture, a lot of things are like that, and that shouldn't be the case. We should redesign the things that we use to adapt for multiple people using it. Um,
Yeah.
the Sugata Mitra studied this in computers. You know, computers are generally thought one person at a time at the computer. Well, he found that kids actually thrived when 3 or 4 kids were at a computer together and everyone was using it.
Oh, cool. Cool.
I'll have
Yeah,
to
no,
link
I'd
that.
totally forgotten about water fountains in public schools. That's a trip.
Yeah.
But I swear I've also got this memory, and I don't know where they like literally maybe they still had this in locker rooms when I was in school, where they had like 8 water fountains that so it wasn't cooled like lots of public schools now. When I was a kid anyway had like it had a refrigerator and something was cooling the water and filtering the water, and so there was one spigot. But I can remember these things where they had like 8 spigots and it was just water coming through a pipe.
Hmm.
But anyway, neither here nor there. Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think you had some thoughts about this
And
next one. Okay, go ahead.
yep.
Sorry.
No, next one's good. I guess. Uncomfortable conversations. Oh dear God.
Yeah.
This one. Okay. Again, this is just
This,
something I thought was important, so we did it naturally because my dad had very uncomfortable conversation. It wasn't very uncomfortable, but it was the kind of the typical uncomfortableness that's associated with the sex talk, and bizarreness. And yeah, we've done this because I thought it was important. We've done it since the kids could talk.
mhm.
And so once again, I just don't even know what to do with this. Yep. I guess
The
that's
culture, the cultural expectations are what make the conversation uncomfortable. And we bring our discomfort to the conversation. That's what's ironic about this one, is that kids are not uncomfortable with these topics. We are.
yep. No, that's exactly
And
right.
so saying, positioning it as making your kid have this conversation is like, no, your kid wants to have this conversation. You're the one that doesn't want to have it.
Yeah.
So again, reframing it, taking the combativeness out of it and saying, let them talk about this stuff. That's much more of a teamwork approach. When your kid asks about where babies come from, that's when they're ready to have some of that conversation. You
Yeah.
don't have to make this thing happen.
Yep.
Let it happen.
Well, because stuff comes up in life, and you can talk about it when it comes up, and yeah.
And then you ready to move on to the last one, the final?
Yes.
I wonder if we should have done this like the David Letterman like top 10 list, where we start at the number 8 and work our way down to number 1.
Oh God.
But
This one is, oh my God. This thing, and I just saw it this morning too. And I don't know what to think, because I think my personal opinion, based on nothing, is that public school is a problem because it has artificial scarcity. You're locked in this building. You have a teacher to get attention from. Later on, you'll have 7 teachers to get attention from, and that arguably I thought made things better. Like you said, they line them up one after one after one. And so then there's fights about who goes in the front of the line and who goes at the back. And shoot, every other thing I can think of. You can only have so much time outside. Yeah, and it sounds, I think that creates a whole slew of problems. And then here he is in number 8, the limitation fight, where I think he's arguing that's a good system. It's just like, what? And again, I think this is a thing the world will take care of. It's a let thing. If people are out in the world, there are, in fact, sure, there's limits. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Why would I need to set them? They're gonna find, they have found all this. Yeah. So yeah, this is
Yeah.
I don't understand the perspective. Um, like the dietary limits thing is just, I'm just like, you're kidding me, right? Um, they figure this stuff out.
Hmm.
The kid and I, so the kid that went to Philadelphia and I, is really into baking, and like the thing that she has said she wants to do is go, because I'm like, okay guys, what if you and I could independently do one thing a week? What would you want to do? And like one kid wanted to play golf, and one kid really likes sushi. So, and we don't wind up doing this every week, but it's a thing, not even most weeks, but it's a thing. We try to walk down and get a little bit of sushi. And this kid was like, I want to go for a long walk and get baked goods, and talk about not doing
Hmm.
it every week. We'd never done it. And in Philadelphia, I knew where there's a really good bakery. And so we got to do it. And so we did, and we got a lot of baked goods. We got like a cannoli and a shortcake and a birthday layer cake and a chocolate croissant. And then we went and found a table
Hmm.
and got me outside at another place and got me a cup of coffee and started working our way through these things. And about 2/3 of the way through, she's just like, this is too much sugar. This isn't gonna
Hmm.
work. And
Hmm.
the whole rest of the day, and even into the next day, I was just kind of like, no, and even the next day she was still feeling it, and she's like, if we do that again, we need to get like one thing. I was like, yeah, no, I thought so. I guess this is a really long way of saying we're all built with the same organs and we're all human, and
Hmm.
if they get to have the experience, they're gonna limit themselves the same way the rest of us do for the exact same reasons. So
Yeah. There's and we do some of these limits for our kids, and there's some of them that I wish we didn't do. Um, and then on in the same breath, I'm learning things about how ADHD works, and that there's probably an argument to be made about me having to give myself other limits that neurotypical people might not need to do.
okay.
But that's a self thing, and maybe someone would need to teach me about those things. But that's very different than making me do them, because the your kids are, you don't know what's going on in their brain. Even if you have a diagnosis, you don't know. And so using the language of making them live within limits that you set is very different than using the let language and saying, let them explore their limits.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you could say it that way, like, and I really wish that you and I have had this conversation about screens um, where my wife and I are not on the same page with this. And I want to let my kids explore their own personal limitations around screens. And she really wants to set the limits for them. And I think there's validity in both. I don't completely disrespect her for her perspective. I disagree with her, and I tell her that, but she disagrees with me, and she doesn't think that it's right. And we're probably both wrong, because there's probably some things that we should be limiting that I'm not seeing, and there's probably some things that we shouldn't be limiting that she's not seeing. And but to sort of make this blanket statement that you're the one that gets to decide what their limits are, I think is very combative.
It is, and how are they going to decide what limits are, when you're not, which I know the answer to this because I experienced some of this, God, I didn't wash dishes when I got out of the house for years, and because I never had the experience of what happens if you don't. Oh, sweet Jesus, the apartment smells like a dump. But yeah, if you don't let them figure out their own limitations, like the kid in Philadelphia now knows not, yeah, and it was my stupid idea. but still knows that 4 pastries at one setting isn't going to go well.
Yeah, like
Um,
we've been one of those families who have limited Halloween candy. We've kind of spread it out, and which is I'm okay with, but at the same time, you have to be able to explore some of those limits yourself. So I think he could make a sub-thread of like husbands and wives have to pick their battles too. Because marriage is a collaboration, and we don't always see eye to eye, and so there's a lot of things that her and I disagree on, and it's like, I'm not going to fight this. It is what it is, and I may
yeah.
be wrong and I may be right, but I'm not gonna try to make this into a thing.
Yep. And I think that's a huge part of it too. That would be an interesting book somebody ought to write, but because I do see the same things like in my partner and I's relationship. It's like there's some things that really, 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 really matter to us. And some things that we're like, all right, that's your thing, and I can survive
Yeah,
with it. And it's a process. Um,
yeah.
but, yeah.
Well, overall, I think it's an informative thread. I think it's a good conversation. I like where I feel like where we both landed is we can get behind the concepts if we change the language to be like, let them explore all this stuff, because all of these things are very healthy for us to explore as individuals and as communities. But if we just shift it over to from combative to in like an invitation, invite them.
Yeah.
You could change it to invite them to read, invite them to go outside, invite them to eat with you. So I would caution the two people watching this video
Right on.
to change the language, to
Yep.
invite the kids into your life and not make them be a part of your life.
Yep. I think that's a really good message, maybe to just sum it all up on.
Yeah. All right. Well, we better get out of here. Thanks for chatting with me today, Hamilton. Thank
Oh,
you
thank you.
to for anyone who watched, and of course, we always like if you have any comments or questions, post them below, and we'll get back to you. We'll reply on the comments, I would imagine.
Ooh, that'd be cool. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Take care.